Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hilton Samuel, and I will be taking you through Module 1, Architecting Fundamentals on AWS. Over the next 3 days, we're going to go through 12 to 13 modules, and this is the first of those 13. Just before we start, can I just check? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see me and hear me, or put Y for yes in the chat box? Yep, I see Alex is saying that he can see me and hear me. There is Davina. Yes, 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 or lots of yes coming through. Okay, let us start. Just to give you an overview of how we're going to be trudging through the different modules. All modules start with 3 or 4 introductory slides. The first one is to check where you are in terms of using AWS services. So you usually have these check-in questions. So at work, have you started using AWS service? Or are you not using it at all? And if so, can you just tell me, have you just started? Are you already using prototypes? Are you having lots of production workloads running, or are you 100% on board with AWS cloud services? If you're not using it, put an N in the chat if you've just started. A, if you already do using prototypes. B, and if you have production workloads running. C, if you are 100% on board, then put D. Yes, I see Kim have just started. And okay, Alex is saying that they haven't used it. Then we have Andre. Yes, they're 100% on board. Yes, fine. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for that feedback. Now, let's continue. Now, all modules, they will always give you a module overview. There is always a business request, perhaps from your CTO or someone up in your work, who wants to get some idea as to how we're going to use it, why, and benefits and things like that. Then we're going to look at the different services that AWS, Amazon Web Services, offer. And there is a raft of them, some over 200 services. So we'll look at the main ones. And of course, we want to think about the infrastructure. What is the infrastructure that AWS have in place around the world? We also will look briefly at the well-architected framework, and look at that word, architect. Is like building, what is the well-architected framework? AWS has been around since 2006, 2006, which means that there is a lot of history and they've learned a lot of things. And many people have been using their services. And so they know the best practices. So you don't have to learn from your own mistakes. You could just learn from other people's mistakes and what are the best practices that AWS can offer. Okay, we'll look at the solutions to the questions, and maybe I'll give you a little bit of a knowledge check to see how well you have absorbed the knowledge that I am going to be sharing with you. And there is a lab at the end that will give you hands-on practice of what we spoke about. So let's go to the business request. In this case, there is a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, who wants to explore and find out the following questions. So the following questions would be, if we're going to use AWS, are there any benefits? And if so, what are the benefits? What are we going to get out of using AWS that we don't already have, or some other service don't have? And then, the global infrastructure, how is it organized? And they just want to have an idea of how that. And then again, what are the best practices? So what are the quickest, easiest things we can do to get up and running without having to spend too much time reinventing the wheel. Let's say you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to rewrite the Bible. So we're going to talk about what the best practices are. So let's start with the first question. What are the benefits of using AWS services? So let me just ask you, do you think that it's beneficial to jump on the cloud using AWS? And if so, can you hazard a guess at what are some of the probable benefits of doing that? Anybody? Okay, yes, go ahead. Let's hear you. So you're saying, okay, I could see Alex typing in the chat that you would be able to start your business faster. Obviously, yes, we're going to talk about that. There are security benefits. Yes, AWS do have some security practices and procedure. In fact, one of the modules is about security. We have dedicated an entire module about security. Anybody else? Okay, fine. Let's just look at some of the benefits of using AWS service. Now, let's talk about AWS and its global infrastructure. We will expand on this in a little bit, but here are some benefits. It's global. So AWS have data centers all over the world. And as a result of that, with that breadth and expanse of services, you are going to be able to clock in or log in or benefit from its global database and services. And along with that, it has quite a wide array of services. Like I indicated before, it's over 200 services you can find on AWS. Over 200 services. Bear with me. Let me see if we can get... there are over 200 services that AWS offers, and actually over 300 products it has. I'll show you in a minute. And it's secure. Everybody wants to know that what they're doing is secure. Nobody wants thieves to break into their house and steal what they have, an invasion of privacy. AWS services, they're quite secure. They're very robust, strong, could withstand a number of different things. And there is what is called the pay-as-you-go model. Let me just briefly explain what the pay-as-you-go model is all about. There are times when you buy something, and if you're operating a business, you may have to get machinery. And there are times when you're not using your machinery to the fullest capacity, and there may be even times when you're not using it at all. But you've already made the investment. You can't just throw it away, neither can you return it, but you are locked in with the investment. With AWS, the services that you use, you pay for just what you use. You pay for just what you use. That means you're not locked into any very heavy major investment, and it's built for business needs. So these are the things, these are some of the benefits of AWS. Right, let's explore some more benefits of AWS. Now, there is what we call accelerate to market. Years and years ago, I used to work with a company called Northwest London Online, and it was a training company. And we had our own computers, and those were the early days of the internet. So we decided to get our own servers. And before we could even be up and running, we had to purchase the servers, wait for the servers to come, then we had to install the servers, we had to get someone to network or create the networking system, and it took quite a few weeks for all of that to be installed. With AWS, no problem. You can start tomorrow, next week, or as quickly as you can. You sign up for the account, you decide how many servers you want, and you get what is known as a virtual private cloud, a little piece of the cloud, or a little section or corner or set of servers that they have, and you simply hit the ground running. You could get innovation of service. To innovate is to be able to change as you go along that suits the need that you have. You can scale seamlessly up or down. If there is a peak in your business, you can simply add more servers, add more capacity. And if there is a drop in your business, you can just give those servers back. Stop using them, and you only pay for what you use. You're not logged, you're not strapped into simply once you have the server, then it's used for life, and whatever happens, then if it goes out of date, then you just have to buy a new server if you have your own physical server. No, not with Amazon. Amazon updates its services as they go. And then you optimize cost. You optimize costs. Similarly to what I was speaking about before, every business is in business to make money, to minimize expenditure and maximize profit. With AWS, you can do this far more easily than if you run your data centers on your own. And then there is security. Nobody, I don't know of anyone, and I don't know for you, likes people who would break into their homes and take their valuables, and in the case of cloud computing, hack into their database and expose the database. That's one of the nightmares that any business can run. So with AWS, there is a lot of security. We even have an entire module on security. Okay, and it reduces management complexity. With AWS services, look, you can manage things. You don't need tons and tons of staff in order to manage. You don't even probably need an IT. In some companies, they have to have a dedicated IT department. No, you actually don't need that with AWS. Let's talk about the different services that AWS offer. Can you just type in the chat or unmute your mic and tell me what are some of the services that AWS offers? Okay, yes, Alex, we have serverless services, there is database, you're right, Ingrid, there is management and governance, and definitely storage. We have AWS cost management, compute, somebody says security and identity compliance services, and definitely, nobody mentioned networking, but these are just some of the core services that we are going to be focusing on as we go through this course. Now, the CTO wanted to find out, how is AWS global infrastructure organized? And this is what we're going to be talking about in the next couple of slides. So there are data centers, availability zones, regions, and local zones. And what we're going to do, let me just switch over. Right. And we have, let's take this off. Just to give you an idea of the global infrastructure, I just want you to think about the house that you live in. If you think of your house as what they call a data center right now, you live in a house, and in your home, in your data center, you have many, many servers. So your home is like a server. in AWS, and this is called a data center. Now, your house is not the only house in your area. In fact, there will be a cluster of houses. There will be a cluster of houses. So there will be another house, your neighbor's house, and then if you think of another house, all of these are houses, right, with thousands of servers. And in the case of several houses that are clustered together in a geographical region, you would have what is called, okay, let's just change the color here. This is what Amazon would call a availability zone, right? An availability zone. So we have individual houses or data centers that would have hundreds, if not thousands, of web servers, and a collection, 1, 2, 3, a collection of them in a certain specific geographical area is actually called an availability zone. So availability zone is made up of several, maybe 2 to 3 data centers that are close enough in proximity with each other, about 60 miles apart. And several availability zones or several areas. So you have your home, your neighbor's home, the cluster there would probably make up what is called a village. So if we duplicate this, let's see if we could, if we can duplicate this. There should be an easy way of duplicating this. Boom, boom. Let's select, and we copy and we paste. So we have another availability zone and another availability zone. And when we have all of these together, okay, all right, we collect all of these together, we have what is known, in your case and the area that you live in, it might be a town, or it might even be a city. But in terms of the nomenclature of AWS, we call this a region. We call this a region. So several availability zones together would be called a region. So just to go back, we have the individual data centers. A collection of data centers will create an availability zone. Collection of availability zones will have what is called a region. Now, there are other global infrastructure. For example, they have what is known as a local region. I'm going to explain what a local region is. A local region, and there is also what is known as edge location. Edge location. Now, the way I explain these is simply put. Now, if you have an area that demands a lot of services, for example, in Hollywood or Bollywood or Nollywood, in Hollywood in California, Bollywood in India, Nollywood in Nigeria, you would definitely realize that these areas would use up a lot of data services, upload and download services, because they create and generate a lot of movies. People watch these movies. So what AWS would do, it will create an extension of its region, a mini region. So it will create an extension of its region, and it would call it local zone, so that it maximizes or allow these areas, these local zones, to get the service that they need, which is over and beyond what a regular region would be able to provide for them. So it simply boosts the area by giving it its dedicated region, what we call a local zone there. Now, what is edge? What is edge? Okay. Now, the edge location is where you usually have location, I-T-O-N, edge location. Edge location is actually where you would have an area that has what is known as cached data. Now, the way I explain it, or the way I tend to parse it in my mind is, if you have a production company, let's say you're producing milk, all right? And there are some areas that consume a lot of milk and milk products like cheese and creams and all of that thing. Then rather than, if your farm is way over in Ireland and you're serving areas in England or parts of England, then it would be better to move a production center nearer the areas that demands a lot of milk. So you could move a production center into the area that would demand a lot of milk for whatever they are doing. And that would be a local zone. However, the edge location would be supplying a local supermarket with enough milk so that the individuals in that area do not have to travel all the way to a production center to get the milk. So the milk is actually cached in the supermarket, the local supermarket, so that people in that area could access it easily, rather than them having to trek all the way to Ireland or all the way to a local production area. So that is what I think. So if there is someone in India who wants a movie that is being streamed in California, which is the other side of the world, the latency, there would be, traveling all the way, getting all that data all the way from California to India or China. There might be high latency. All kinds of things could happen. Lagging, maybe there is a drop someplace and the data streaming and buffering. So it would make sense to take that video and store it nearer the area that that individual is. So that is caching. So we looked at data centers. We looked at data center as availability zone, regions, local zones, and edge location. Is there any question, any confusion, any comments, any criticism? Don't be afraid, just unmute yourself or type a question in the chat to let me know if you have any comments or questions. If not, let's just move smoothly along. Right, so we have spoken about these already, and then we looked at the AWS data centers, we looked at the availability zones, we didn't check that the availability zones. Why would we have availability zones? It's primarily to have high-speed private networks, and then we looked at some of the regions around the world. Okay, one of the things, if we go back here, we go back one, is that you would notice that there are some areas that are more populated with availability zones than others. Can you tell me which areas are not very populated. Okay, right, areas of Russia, Africa, South America. You're quite right. You're on target, Philip, right? Those are these areas. Greenland. Now, here's a question that I want us to look at. Why there would be some areas that are more populated, but there are other areas that AWS have not yet explored or gone into or developed or invested or have data centers in? What are some of the likely reasons this may be so? Right, just type your response in the chat, or you can open your mic and speak. Yes, Lizette. Yeah, you're quite right. Maybe because of the laws in that country. The laws can be tricky to get around. Okay, anything else? Definitely, Andre, the cost factor. The cost factor might be there's some areas that is more cost effective than others, and that brings us to, yeah, so the cost factor is important, and also the latency. Some countries have better infrastructure than others. Your electricity won't be dropping every day or every other day in an unpredictable way. So, and then there is service availability. There are some areas where some services are not available for whatever reason. So these are some of the reasons and factors that impact the selection of the region that AWS services are available in. Okay, we spoke about local zones and why we need local zones and the factors that influence whether or not an area has a local zone. For example, media and entertainment, content creation, real-time gaming, these machine learning, live video streaming, augmented reality. These are use cases why AWS may create a local zone. Yep. So we, yes, expanded and expounded on edge location. And we spoke about a use case, for example, someone on the other side of the world trying to access a video that is generated and created in America or South America. It's probably easier if we host the video or cache the video or store the video nearer the customer. So, right, so these are some of the differences between local zone and edge location. Definitely there is low latency for local zones, data processing, consistent experience, where edge location really is about caching the data, storing the data nearer the area. It's very fast in terms of delivery of content, and you have a better experience. Now, one way I heard a friend of mine explain that with regards to local zone, there is the production, the actual generating of the data and processing the data, whereas for edge location, it is caching or storing the data. Any questions on that as before we move on? Okay. Right. The CTO wanted to find out how we can build our cloud infrastructure according to best practices. What are the best things, the best practices? That's what I was thinking. I was trying to think of a synonym for best practices, but what can we do in order to quantum leap, get our systems up and running in the best possible way, using the lessons learned from other people who have done something similar before? Well, as an architect, if you're building a house, you need an architect. You need an architect to plan the house. So you have to have some kind of planning strategy. And for the architect to plan, they need to research, they need to review, and then they would go and design certain solutions. And once all that is done, then you need to build. And once you're building, you need to manage. Right? So, this is what is called the well-architected framework or pillars. Rather than going through this, let me just pull up for you one of my mind maps, and I'll just break these down. So I'm going to speed through them. One of the things that we need to have with the well-architected pillars or framework is that you need operational excellence. Operational excellence. All right, let's just make sure we make these a tad bigger so that you could see them. And operational excellence includes, making sure that you keep improving things to meet the needs that you have as you go along. So if your needs improve, if the demands improve, then you need to improve your business to meet the demands. And in this day and age, you also want to be clear that you're using automation. In the world of AI, you don't want to be heavily focused on doing things manually, which is slow and expensive. So we need operational excellence so that things run smoothly and efficiently as much as possible. If you're running a restaurant, there will be periods when there is peak demand, like, lunchtime or dinner time, or if you serve breakfast. But in between those periods, the demands drop. So you need to be able to make sure that you scale up or down efficiently in your business. And of course, we spoke about security, right? Make sure you use strong passwords and encryption, and make sure you do multi-factor authentication so that someone who's trying to access the account need 2 layers of passwords to get in. So security needs to be, down pat so that hackers and you don't lose your data. Nothing could be more heart-rending and loss of confidence. People will have loss of confidence in you if their data on your system get exposed to the public. And you must be reliable. You must be able, like I indicated, to scale up and down. If you have a problem, you need a backup so that you could recover easily. You need to make sure that your systems work correctly. Even when things break, even if something breaks, you still want to be operational. You don't want to be done and flat out. The thing that comes to my mind, if you're flying a plane and something goes wrong with the engine, you don't want to have to stop. There's no, if you have to stop, you're in major catastrophic problems. So even if one engine goes out, you need the other engines to be firing in a way to take the plane safely down to the destination. And performance efficiency, like this, make sure that you have and can adapt to the change without wasting time and money. Make sure you have new technologies and use the technology that is best for what you're doing. You choose the right tools. I grew up with my brother who was a carpenter, and in those days they did everything manually, planing manually, driving a screw manually. Nowadays you need a machine that does all of this. Cost optimization we spoke of briefly. You don't want to be spending on things that you don't have to be spending on. You need to understand where your money is going, and you need to make sure that you buy the best type of services that you need for your business. And sustainability, you need to aim so to the point you need your system to be working so that it doesn't contribute to the global warming situation around the world, which AWS has a way of keeping under control. Right, so your carbon footprint should be low. You should aim for a greener, more sustainable way of doing things, and you need to reduce the impact on the environment using the cloud operations. So those are the well-architected pillars that you need to frame your infrastructure, your VPC, your virtual private cloud around. Well, what do you know? AWS actually has a tool that does all of this. You don't have to do it manually. It has a tool that would analyze your systems and check to see whether or not you have followed the well-architected tool. And it's literally called the well-architected framework. And it's actually called, guess what? The well-architected tool. So let me just jump into the console and show you this tool. In the console, you simply, in your search box, can you see my console? Yep. Can you put a Y? Yes, yes, Hilton is seeing it. Alex is seeing it. Okay, very good. So we're going to look for the well architected tool. Usually it pops up as you start typing. If you select it, then you will see the dashboard, how the well architected framework works. And near the top on the right, you click on the define workload button and you will be taken through several steps. You give it a name. I'm not going to do that right now. You would name it. Oh, for heaven's sake, my computer is ticking. Bear with me. This shouldn't happen. Okay, there we go. You give it a name and a description. All right, this one I was just going to type in. This is going to be a test, and you give it a description, a brief description of what it's all about. It's going to be the LSDN VPC, and you just fill in the various boxes down here. And when you finish, you go to the bottom, you select next. There are probably some of these fields that you have to populate. Yes, we want production, AWS region. We're going to select the regions. And for now, we're going to just select any of these regions. US East 1. And these are optional. So we go to the bottom, select next. All right, we left something out. Name, email address, or identifier. Samuel at lsdn.org.uk. Yep. Right, so now we should be able to go through, go select next, and we want search for profile. Well, I'm not going to actually create one because I don't have something that we have. Then we need to define the workload. Apply lenses, select define workload, and here it will give you an overview of what is high risk, what is medium risk, and you will adjust it accordingly. All right, so that's the well architected tool. What I want to show you is a use case, an example of this company called Moots Technology that use the well-architected tool, and it was a great benefit to them. Here they say, here the managing director, Oliver, says, by implementing AWS well-architected tool and expanding our standards and procedures through the AWS framework, we took the fast lane for learning how to operate solutions at scale, securely, reliably, and efficiently. Okay, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. What we are going to do quickly is to look at, give you a bit of a review of what we studied. We considered these questions, what are the benefits of using AWS, and we went through things like the cost, went through things like innovation, how is the AWS global infrastructure organized, and we learned that it's organized on the basic level, having the data centers, the collection of data centers would give you availability zone, a collection of the availability zone gives you a region. Then obviously we also looked at the local zones and cache. The caching, oh no, actually we didn't call them the cache, we call them the edge location. And how could you build infrastructure according to best practices? There are a number of things that you look for. There's reliability, security, making sure that it's operating efficiently, sustainable. And we went through the whole sequence that you must implement when creating a cloud infrastructure. We also looked at a tool that could evaluate what you've created and give you feedback. Now, let's check some knowledge. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a knowledge check. All right, here are some questions. Ooh, I gave you the answer. Let's go back. Which is the best example of an AWS architect? All right. Which is the best example of one responsibility of an architect, AWS architect. All right. Okay. Put your answer in the chat. Most people are saying D. A few have said monitor alarm for disaster response. Not exactly. Most people are right. So D is the answer. It analyzes solutions for business needs and requirement. Now, which, number 2, which item is a cluster of data centers within a geographic location for low latency and connectivity? All right. All right. I see many of you saying A, a few of you saying B, and A is the answer. You've got it. Okay. Which factors must be considered when picking an AWS region? Select 2. Okay. Location, regulations, operations. Okay. 2, everybody. Some people are saying A and B. Others are saying C and E. E is a bit far out. So generally speaking, it should be A and C. Well done on those of you who got those. Okay, what is the primary benefit of deploying applications in multiple availability zones? Now, everybody is actually saying, oh, we have some A, mostly C, and C is the correct answer. Okay, last one. Which AWS well-architected pillar contains the principle of least privilege? Least privilege. Okay, some people are saying D. Most people are saying B. All right, B is the answer. Well done. We are going to now move into doing our lab.